Kevin Wargenden, thanks so very much. And hi, everybody, I'm Dave Little, and this is In the Sulky. My guest tonight, 18-year-old Brett Beckwith, who's now starting his career as a harness driver. And, you know, Brett, for someone who's a relative newcomer, you have already have over 1,000 starts this year. Your first pari-mutuel drive came in January. Did you expect to get this much work so early in your career?
If I'm being quite honest, not at all. I've gotten way more work this year than I thought I would have. But I'm taking every opportunity as it goes and just trying to make the most out of it.
All right, now let's take a look at something I put together. It's called the Beckwith Files, and it's a little bit of a history of Brett Beckwith's life. First of all, you were born in 2003. I think in 2003, I was in the newspaper business about 600 years by then. All right, now you're the son of driver Mark and trainer Melissa. And obviously, we know Mark and Melissa very, very well. Last night, they had a couple of horses. In one of the last races. But the thing that really struck me most about you is that you told me on the phone, I think it was last week, that you really didn't get started in harness racing until about 2.5 years ago. And normally, in your type of situation, everybody's jogging horses when they're 3 years of age. Tell me why you got that late start.
Honestly, I just really wasn't ever into it. You know, I would go to school, I would go home, I would hang out with my friends. I just would never go to the barn. It wasn't until I went to the Meadowlands, actually, with my grandfather, and I started watching some of the Meadowlands races with him, and like just watching him watch his horses race, and just watching him watch those races, it was just something I wanted to get into, just seeing his reaction.
Were there other sports that you were more interested in?
I was a big fan of basketball. I don't think I was ever that good, but since then, I started working out a bunch and to be in shape for driving, and that's about it.
All right, now your dad, Mark, at one time he was one of the leading drivers at Yonkers Raceway. He's had a great career. He won a career best 430 races the year before you were born, and the next year he won 268 more. Was he and your mom happy when you wanted to get into the game?
At the start, probably I'd say no, because they wanted me to get a degree. They didn't know what the business would be like and whatnot, but they're happy now and they support me fully.
All right, so you got the late start in the game. How did you start? In other words, did you just go to the barn and start jogging horses and say, hey, this is for me?
I started by going to the barn. I would help them clean out stalls in the morning, get the horses ready and whatnot. And once I started jogging horses and training horses with my dad and stuff, I kind of just fell in love.
Now, there's an awful lot of work to do around the barn. Yeah. So for you to just start 2.5 years ago, there was an awful lot of work taken off the shoulders of your dad and your mom?
Yeah, I think they definitely appreciated the help at the time. I don't help them out as much at the barn anymore because I'm on the road so much, but they definitely appreciate it.
All right, now last week came a pretty big moment in the young career of Brett Beckwith, getting his first ever win at the Meadowlands. Let's take a look at the roll-in with not the race call, Meadow Branch Ricky. You have him on the lead at the quarter, and here you are rolling past the half in 57-1. Were you aware that you got a 29-1 breather in that second quarter?
I was. I knew once I made it to the front, I tried to rate him as best as I could. The trainer's husband, Marty, told me that he's really good either way if you leave with him or you take back. There didn't seem like there was much speed, and it seemed like the best spot for him at that time was the front end.
Now, here you get a little bit of separation. Is that something that is that the horse, or is that you asking the horse for more at that time?
If I'm being quite honest, I never asked the horse at all, really. The whole way down the lane, he kind of just kept trotting and trotting. I tried to keep the bit in his mouth and just let him do his own work.
All right, so here you're clear of the field. Are you still like, come on, where's the wire, where's the wire, where's the wire? Is that what you were thinking?
I was looking for the wire, but I had so much trot left, I don't think anyone was catching me that night.
All right, so Meadow Branch Ricky goes down the road. Now tonight he's in a pretty tougher spot in tonight's fourth race. 9 winners of 7,000. Are you anticipating a similar type of trip, or are you going to have to come from off the pace?
It depends on how the race works out, and I'll have to look over and see who's leaving. And looking at the program, there's probably going to be some inside speed, but honestly, my horse can get off the wings better than any of them, I think. So we're just going to have to play it by ear.
Is Ricky the type of horse who can win from off a helmet?
Based on his lines, I think so. I watched a couple of his replays before I drove him last week, and he honestly had a great efforts off the trot, too. I think he's just very versatile.
All right, now being a harness driver these days with all the available dates, it's easy to rack up big time mileage on your car. Now here's a look at some of the miles that you have to drive on any given day, and I tell you what, it really is daunting when you consider some of the miles that you have to do going from the 3 tracks that you basically do your work at, which is Plain Ridge, Freehold, and of course Saratoga. Now you're based in Saratoga.
Yes.
All right, no, so essentially, is that a trip that you make very often, Saratoga to Plain Ridge?
Saratoga to Plain Ridge was only once a week, and
All right.
it wasn't until for only like a month and a half. My dad asked me to go for a couple others of his own that other people were taking off of, so I went, and I got some opportunities from some other trainers as well.
All right, so you go from, do you ever go from Plain Ridge to Freehold? That looks pretty bad, 250 miles.
Plain Ridge from Freehold after a Thursday of racing can be pretty tough.
Right. How long does that take you?
4 hours and 15 minutes, 4 hours and 30 minutes. Anything past 3 hours, you feel it.
All right, now Freehold to Saratoga, that's not quite as bad at 236 miles. But again, it's got to get a little bit boring to get all those miles racked up in your car just to get a couple of drives.
It can, but I always think of it as just benefit in my future. That's the only way you really can think about it.
Yeah, it's really a matter of paying your dues. I know Mitch Cushing, who raced up in Maine, used to drive down here from up Bangor and wherever else he was driving, and it was 7 hours one way to get one drive at the Meadowlands. So it really is a matter of paying your dues.
Absolutely. He's very dedicated, too. He would go anywhere for anything.
Is there ever a day that you wake up and you say, I got to go to Plain Ridge today. I really don't feel like driving today?
Personally, for me, I'd say since I'm young, I wake up and I'm pretty energized every day, but there are days that you wake up and you're just tired or whatnot, but if you stopped doing what you love and stopped working out those days, you wouldn't be where you are today.
All right, you're still learning the ropes. You have about 1,000 pari-mutuel drives this year. Again, you're ahead of schedule, especially driving on a mile track. Who do you go to for advice?
That's tough to say. I'm not really close with a lot of the guys here and whatnot. I don't really know them that personally, but I've talked to a couple guys and grabbed advice from a couple people. I mean, I'm not close with them, but Scotty Zeron's a very good driver here, and if I ever need any advice, I'd ask him. A lot of guys, they're not afraid to help you out.
All right, now, before we let you go, let's take a look at tonight's 8th race. All right, non-winners of 14,700 on the trot, and you're going to be behind Marion Gondolier, who was a pretty good-looking winner in last, winning in 154. That's the 8th race.
Yeah. Honestly, Marion Gondolier, I don't know much about.
So what's your approach if you don't know the horse?
I like to look at his lines, see what his past performances have been looking like, where he seems like he races the best. I mean, last week was a really impressive mile, sitting a 2-hole trip and just exploding off cover.
So you'd like to go a similar trip, I assume, this time around?
Yeah, it doesn't look like the one in there has too much gate speed, and shows mine's got a lot, so I'm going to definitely push out of there for position.
All right. Will we see Brett Beckwith and Team Beckwith at the Meadowlands in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, I think my parents plan on racing a couple over the winter just to keep them fresh for when Saratoga opens back up. But I'm definitely going to be here.
All right, well, that's
no doubt.
That's great to know. 18-year-old Brett Beckwith, he'll be doing some driving here at the Meadowlands in the coming weeks and months, and we look very much forward to seeing your success continue to bloom as time goes by.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show, Dave. I appreciate it.
All right, great to have you, Brett. Okay, we're going to take a timeout for about 60 seconds, and when we come back, Jessica Otten will jump in that seat, and we'll talk about tonight's featured action.